This is one I'm not sure is appropriate to start with the peace greeting. And even what I played was in the beginning was not only to give people time to come in, but it was also because this is about the war, which makes it inappropriate for me to start with the peace greeting. First, let me ask if you all can hear me clearly. Please put a 1 in if I'm clear, and I'll type this in. Uh, Please type in a 0 if you cannot hear me. All right, so this is all right. Cool. So I got a few ones. Um, I know some professors that'll sit up and when we have to teach classes online, some of my colleagues will forget and they'll say, if you can't hear me, put a 0 or put a 2 or something like that. And if you can, put a 1. And then they don't see anything and they're like, oh, how am I supposed to know? And I have to tell them, you got to type in if, I got to tell them, look, if you're going to tell them what to put in if they can't hear you, you got to type that in because they can't hear you. That's how you find out whose mic is not working. That's how they find out their mics aren't working or their speakers aren't working. So there's that. So I have to find out how it is that you can play intros and things like that, and they go straight into the audio the same way your own voice would on your mic. I'm not sure how that works, but I'll figure it out eventually, and if you have to pay for that or not. But several years ago, and I know it was several years ago because I was still living in the north and the second Bedouin town in which I ever lived in this kingdom, with my beloved wife. And I remember going live. I went live in the daytime where I live, asking the same question, but I opened the panel up and I allowed women to come in if they wanted to and say why men should approach. And there were guys that came in and said, this is why we should not, but none of the women came in and said, this is why we should, or why you should. And then later some ladies tried to say, well, Black Mind, as I was going by that moniker back then, Black Mind tried to go live when everybody was still asleep. And I remember thinking, God, good God Almighty, if they were asleep and the men were awake, what the hell does that say about them? The backbone of the community. They're asleep. I'm too early for them, but the men are awake and they're able to come on to the panel and talk or hit the chat. I'm coming back to revisit this topic because back then there was a dichotomous view of how that should work. Back then when I went live with that question, if you were Muslim, like I and Darius and Abu Malik and the chat are, then the reason that you don't approach is not the same as it is if you are not Muslim. If you are not Muslim, then the reason you don't approach is vastly different. So this time it turns out that we may have two different reasons for drawing the same conclusion. Or rather, we may have a common reason for drawing the same conclusion, and then one camp has another one. Now, shouts out to Lion and MGTOW, Malika Maybani, J Everything, Paul, I'm listening, and Salam Alaikum to Darius and to Abdul Malik Abu Thalatha, slave of the king, father of three. Spelling out one in the chat. That's hilarious. I like that. What's good? Peace, true self. And Darius is the Lion of God for practical purposes. That's actually one of his names, if you will. I'm directly translating it. He and I are both Muslim and we're both Creole. And from my understanding, he became Muslim on his own. So I know a little bit more about his journey than what he might think. And I understand that journey. But also, we likewise share this understanding of chastity, but how men can also fight back against misandry. Mr. Sir, I know a little something about Qatar. I went through there once and I visited another time. I won't say exactly when, but uh, there are actually a lot of black folks in Qatar. There are black Qataris. Now, there are not that many Qataris, period. The citizens are outnumbered by the foreigners, but you'll see enough of them. But there are also quite a few black folks of various nationalities there, living and working in Qatar. Swahili is the most commonly spoken language of black folks that live in Qatar. Arabic for the ones that are Qatari, then Swahili and English. So if you're Muslim, I'm sure you can find a Muslim wife. If you're not, there are enough East African non-Muslims and Muslims alike there. But if you're not Muslim, you can only marry a non-Muslim. But they're there. You'll probably become quite good at Swahili too. I saw their behavior. They were well behaved. They were very polite. You didn't see that attitude with them. And that starts in the airport. Many Swahili speakers in the airport itself. That's where it begins. And if you drive into Qatar, then you're going to see a lot of the police officers and customs and immigration that are brothers. And they're citizens. So you'll see plenty of us. It's easy to get pretty comfortable for a black man. And if you choose to not stay single, pursue marriage, not just fornication. But you could do that. That's right. There's decree from Gulf to Gulf. I know that transition too, from the Gulf Coast to this Gulf Coast. And so, getting back to the topic years ago, I posted it, and men were coming up and they were able to say why you shouldn't. And so, while the men are here, I'm going to state why it is that, I'm going to state not why, but how it is that we can go back to being willing to open up discussions. And that is even when you were dealing with traditional women, good women. Number one, and now if some ladies decide to chime in and they decide that they want to say something, I'll open up the panel to everybody, because then there will actually be a discussion. If they choose not to, then and that's okay. If they don't, then I'm going to go ahead and tell you the ways that we could go about being available, but in the right way, and avoid being available in the wrong way. We men have been, we've been too available. Now, this is something that is going on throughout history. I don't think that Western, black or white men are the first ones to be too available. But we men have been entirely too available, not only in number, because there are more of us surviving into adulthood, but there are more of us that are available. Well, largely, yeah, more of us do survive into adulthood. And then on top of that, there are fewer people fighting wars or dying from wars. In terms of how many, in terms of percentages of populations, there are probably fewer. So what I'm saying is that many men have a higher chance of surviving through wars that other people fight when they do make it into adulthood. So there's a higher chance of men making it into old age. We are still outnumbered. Though we are outnumbered, we're seeing that on top of that, in the West, because things are in fact comfortable for some men and for many women, the message that it sends to them is that they don't need men. And they don't fully understand how much they do until they get older. Not only that, but you notice how it is that it's, what's going on, Geechee man? Gale at night, what's happening, y'all? You notice that when they do come to the realization that men have a value, it's when it's too late for them to have a marital and reproductive value to most men. You notice that? That's not a coincidence. Why do those two go hand in hand? How is it that they're not late in their reproductively or maritally valuable years that they realize this. It's when they don't have that value anymore that they realize that men have a value. What is the reason for that? You know what? It doesn't matter why. The fact that they are too late reliably means you look at them and say, never mind. Now, if you're one of those guys that's genuinely drawn to women that are your age or older, okay, by all means, you could talk to them about, you could discuss marriage with them, and even then you need to make it convenient for yourself and take something off of the table because of their age. And I say that because one, you've already seen that age does not necessarily mean maturity. We've seen that. Number two, because see, real maturity comes before you're old. That's the other thing people need to understand. Maturity means you don't have to grow old and start feeling creaks in your joints and popping sounds in your knees to decide you're going to slow down from the shum did. And if you wonder what shum did is, that's a spoonerism. Replace the SH with the D and then you know what I mean. Maturity is when you can make better decisions while you're young, relatively, because they're the right decisions to make, not because you're old. That's maturity. Maturity means you can hold your tongue from insulting someone that never provoked you and never did anything to you, because that's the wrong way to treat people that don't start stuff with you, not because you're too old. It's not something you have to wait until you're 18 to outgrow. When people get into high school, they're supposed to be able to be beyond that. I'm not saying that in the West they will be, but they should. And if they can't, and they think that age, high school, is still too young to have matured past that, then they're simply not mature. That's the first thing we have to understand. Our understanding of maturity in the West does not do justice to maturity. That's first thing. So when they start waiting until they lose their value to most men to start seeing value in men, don't take whatever excuses they give you. Don't accept those kinds of excuses. The only standards that they need to be changing, if that's what the hell it takes, is that they lower them. Oh, you realize that men have a value now. Okay. And you waited till you lost a particular value to most of these men in yourself to decide that they have any value at all. Okay, then if that's really the case, the right thing for you to do is to lower the standards. Fuck the shuck up. That man's married and he's looking for a second wife. Go ahead and deal with it, or just stay by yourself. Things like that, if that's what the hell it takes. So that's the first thing to understand. Now that right there answers the question as to why, one question as to why you should not even be making approaches. That is because, what's going on line 17? That is because you automatically are undervalued. Now see, there are two ways to express the concept of being worth less. Worth space less means simply the comparison, the comparative. Something else or someone else is worth more. Worthless with no space spelled as one word means devoid of value, empty of value. You don't have one. Confederate money is not worth less, it is worthless. Spelled as one word, no space. You, black men, are the only ones, and I don't mean just in America either. No, I'm talking about the diaspora and certain parts of the home continent. You're the only ones that are taught that you are worth less than worthless, meaning you have a negative value and that you're supposed to accept that. Now, there are other men who are given these messages according to their culture, but they don't accept it. That message doesn't last long. It doesn't penetrate as deeply into the psyche of these men. You're the only one that has been told, and I mean as a race, not one nationality. You're the only one that has been told that you are worth less than worthless. That is what is unique about you right there when it comes down to to you making approaches. Many fathers of daughters will act as though men are worth less and even worthless. Many women will act as if men are worthless. But amongst us the notion is that you are worth less than worthless, negative value, and you should just feel delighted that a woman is willing to marry you. And then on top of that, when you accept that notion, that you don't have the self-confidence to keep a lady attracted to you and willing to stay with you, and they bounce and leave anyway because they can't respect you. So you already are being told certain lies that set you up to make it impossible for you to stay married. And if your goal is just relationships and not even marriage, well, I can't endorse that. But since that's your goal, you have to understand that you are still being given that notion. And therefore, it sabotages your relationships later on. That you believe are okay without a marriage, they're still being sabotaged. You can't stay in them unless she's using you. And if you already know what's happening. If she's using you, it's over. She's going to be in a relationship with you, eating your resources and sharing them with you, and then you subsidize her tricking off another man. So that means another man's getting paid to hit that, while you have to pay for less than that. And then on top, I mean, this is insulting, and you're supposed to pay for that insult. So I've talked about that game before and how it's set up. So therein lies another reason that you should not be making approaches. But now you also have these ladies talking about how they're not being approached. A few years ago, this was a complaint. Now, this is something that has enough complaints to it to where men can stitch these videos together. And you can take several minutes to watch them. And they're recent. The numbers of these videos in which they complain about not being approached are increasing. Now there's a crop of new ladies turning 18 every single day, or whatever the age of consent is in people's states or countries for that matter. So the increase in women recording this is not only because of them aging out. There are young ones that are also saying the same thing. The reason for that is the attitude that they've been taught. So now we know that there are enough guys that are not making approaches. And I said a long time ago, when you have an age group, 1/4 of which believes that to simply make an approach and to ask for a number constitutes harassment, what happens when that grows? You already got that. Well, now you've got this age group that is in their late 20s and 30s. I remember almost a decade ago, no, about 6 years ago, or 5.5, when I heard about that. They were, in fact, at that point, they would have been in their late teens and early 20s. Now they're in their late 20s and early 30s. And so therefore, these ladies are now old enough to talk about it and record, and what they are sitting up and seeing from before, or if the older women are telling, oh girl, they're gonna always be guys making approaches, they thirsty, and now they're getting older and realizing, nah, these dudes ain't. That's not what's going on. And as they're coming to realize this, now they have been told what to expect, and it's far worse than what they've been told. So they know something's off because they saw their older sisters and older cousins being approached, and their moms being approached, and having all these options to say no, all these opportunities to say no. And this is the real kicker. It's not that they want most of the men that are not approaching them. It is that they want the chance to say no. And they don't get it. They don't dress up, they don't get their hair done, and they don't go out in groups to get a guy. They go out in groups to get chances to say no. It's a free country. Most countries now are free countries, but there is something to be said for what happens there when that is the goal, when that's what they want. Shout out to Passport OG and to Slipknot. Salute, gentlemen. Slipknot, you've been sharing a good bit of my stuff, and I really, really appreciate that from the bottom of my black heart. And let me give a shout out to Maleka Mebane and for and to Darius Decree again for coming through on the Cash App. I thank you. I appreciate that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. Um, I'm glad to see that people are no longer just waiting on S Jock to come through with all of the Cash App. And yeah, that was a nice amount. Darius, thank you for that generosity too. Um, and let me go through and I'm going to key in this thanks right quick for all of them. Let's see. I hope as Jock manages to catch this, even if it's replay, I hope he gets to catch it. Um, because he has partially inspired my last up. He mainly inspired my last upload in which I was talking about global trends in you, brethren. Um, it is not what it used to be. I mean, the world is the world is different from what we were told it was, and even our relationship to it is different from what we were told. Our place in it, our value in it, and that's part of why it is that I do much of what I do. I noticed that you've been told, and I know because I was told this. I noticed that we were given this notion of there being a reason that we were in fact worthless and worth less than other men and worth less than worthless, and that we should feel like sisters were doing us a favor picking us. There was a reason for that. That we thought there were. We thought there were reasons for that. We heard the rhetoric. You get abroad and you begin to realize that in fact it's not like that. You know, I can tell you now, I rarely see black students here act like the white Bedouin and still do well academically. I don't see that happen. But I also don't see black students here failing as much. That's another thing. I generally see them taking this stuff at least seriously. One thing I don't see, even when I see them not doing so well academically in an English class, one thing I would say is that I see them still making efforts. Usually, if they are, when I got a black student here, and I'm talking to citizens now, when I got black students here and they don't do that well in English class, there's one or two things. Either they're making the effort and English is just difficult for them. And if they come see me, I can help them fix that, but it takes time. Minimum of 3 months, but I can do it. Or they act just like the white Bedouin Arabs, not the white, just non-black Arabs in general, but specifically they act like the non-black Bedouin Arabs, specifically them. Trying to be the hero of the class and the class clown and never growing up. You know, that type of thing. Always got excuses. The culture, my sister. I'll tell you, they hide behind the women of their family so much as to why they don't do stuff. They get tired of sitting in the classroom and you know, the whole time that the class is in session. They get tired of sitting in that classroom for long enough to learn something. Guess what they start doing? Come up to you. My sister called and her class got out early. Can I go and pick her up? No, nigga, you can't. I mean, you can, but you're absent. Whole time she didn't even call. His phone didn't ring. And when black students do act like that, they inevitably fail. Inevitably. But in general, they don't do dumb stuff like that. You also, coming out of North America and other diasporan nations and out the continent, definitely, you don't do stuff like this academically. Now, if you had some that did do that, are they going to get the passports oftentimes and travel anywhere? Especially when they're young and really spending all their money on stunting at the club. Are they going to get the passport and actually go somewhere regularly? Those guys. We sat next to them in high school. Not only are they not going to do that, you don't even see those cats in college and university for longer than a year. Usually it's not even longer than that first semester. You're not allowed to get as far doing as little as other men are. So you've never been allowed really to be inferior to other men in or outside of the United States. You've never been allowed to do that. And in Africa, we're not allowed to do that. A privileged Indian boy that grows up in an African country like Kenya or Uganda, as an example, gets to be a little bit more average and get more out of life than your average black Ugandan. Even if they don't hate each other, that's just how that shakes out. So no, you black men across the board don't get to just be mediocre and get a whole lot out of life in exchange for it. It's not how that works. So you've been told that you should be trying harder. So that you would stay with sisters who themselves can't even appreciate and respect you. And the whole time, you go abroad and you start realizing that they will come to you. At the very least, they might send someone to check and see if you're single or available, at the very least. Ways you can be treated, not only by ladies, but in general, even professionally, abroad, you don't see stateside. Look, if you want to know what happened, what the follow-up has been from the effects of the last semester, where all the students failed. Some of y'all know that story. Now, the details are only in the Jet Black Lounge. You can only get the details in the Jet Black Air Lounge. And as a matter of fact, Darius, if you send me your email, I think, if you send me the email, and Malik, if you send me the email, I can put you all on membership, because, and it will be commensurate to what you just sent to me. I could do that. And that way you will be able to hear this stuff too. But yeah, if you want to hear that, the details of it is on there. The follow-up to it is also on there. But what I can say here is that after all of that, where I get a classroom full of Bedouins that want to be heroes minus one that's not like that, after dealing with this and writing down the grades, you know what? They failed. 2 almost passed, so we gave them the points. The department gave them the points because they were 2 or 3 percentage points away from passing, so we let them. And they still failed the exit exam, and we record. Well, that's actually the testing company did that. That's out of our hands. So they still failed. They got to repeat the advanced level. All of them that were in my class cannot go onto their major curriculum departments. All of them. And it wasn't something I did. And guess what? The follow-up to that, the effects of that, have been that there are changes being made and I am not being blamed. Now in a public school, over there where you are, yeah, Slipknot, I didn't flunk the whole squad. It wasn't me that did it, actually. To be honest, Slipknot, I didn't mark 2 of the major departmental tests that make up 50% of their grade. I didn't mark them. One was marked by 2 other professors, and another one was graded by AI, which is a very good service. It's very accurate. So, goes by the rubric. So it's really good. So it turns out that when they failed the first test, all of them failed the first test miserably, the department started checking, double checking, and they made sure, yeah, these little niggas failed. These light-skinned Arab niggas failed. All of them. And this is one of the things that happened afterwards. So when it came to the second department exam, they had everybody mark somebody else's section, not their own, right? So I didn't grade theirs. 2 other professors did. And then the third time, it was AI that did the grading because it's quick, accurate, all that good stuff. So they proved that these cats just failed. So it really wasn't me flunking the whole squad. Literally, they failed without my help. only thing I did the first time on the first test I taught, they found, I graded them, but they failed. But for the second and third test, I literally just copied their grades from one software into another software to record them. That's literally what I did. I saw their mistakes, told them what the mistakes were. I said, hey, look, after test 2, don't make these same mistakes on test 3. Went over the mistakes every day, went over the corrections every day. I would be like, hey, look, Abdullah, I don't see you writing this down. I have to turn around to the next one. I'll say, hey, Tariq, I don't see you writing this down. These are not their real names, by the way. Hey, I don't see you writing this down. And they point at their head and say, I'm writing it down here. They pull out the phone. I'm going to take a picture. And they will make the exact same mistakes on test 3 and fail. And yes, Slipknot's right. How they cheat and still fail? They playing? Well, the most important thing you guys need to know is that that's what you're coming across. That's your competition that the sister's sitting up and telling you about. You ain't competing with nobody else. Is that your competition? They want you to feel bad and feel inadequate next to these cats. You carrying heavy weight uphill because of the environment you're in and because of what everybody else is willing, not everybody, but many other groups of people are willing to do to you. Some because they hate you because you're black, and others because it just makes it easy for them to be lazy and still have a lot. No hatred towards you. Whatever the case is, you got this uphill battle, more uphill than even other non-white people have, and you're being told that because they got more than you, which they were given, you're lacking. So you should feel fortunate if any black woman wants to be with you, even if she's bringing you other men's kids, venereal diseases, and less box than what she gave to the baby daddy. What's going on, Squirrel World? Brother, truth be told, salute. You know what, Abdul Malik? I need to follow that podcast. My girlfriend told me about it. My wife did too. And for those who, you know what I mean when I say that, my girlfriend and my wife, you know what that means, but some of the newbies don't know, or they forgot that my girlfriend is my wife. But yeah, she's been mentioning that to me, and I need to check them out, but I'm real busy with my own students, designing lessons for them, and then keeping up with this podcast, and then the Jet Black Lounge. So I haven't really been listening, but I should. But I can tell you this. I can tell all y'all brothers this, whether you Muslim or not. You understand the positivity inherent in God making you black. And you understand the lies that the stereotypes have to be. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to perform. Silent Sir, from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind, thank you. That was very generous on the Cash App. I really do appreciate that. I'm not joking. And you are about to see the reply with the thanks on there. And hopefully nobody's offended by me saying the whole names, but I do want to give y'all credit. Making these approaches, in all honesty, in the West, would do nothing other than cheapen you. That's what that would wind up doing. Goes back to the question that Slipknot asked, how they cheat and still fail. And part of that is this. Slipknot, this is another thing that has to do with that. One of the reasons that they cheat and still fail is because my department came up with ways that made it harder for them to cheat and still pass. We've been catching cheaters left and right. I mean, just this week, I caught 3 in one day. One exam, it was the exit exam, because this is a new semester. So these were guys taking the exit exam from last semester. They were retaking it because they already failed. So one of them walked in, he tried to sneak a new phone in, he tried to sneak another phone in his vest. They walk in with 2, they put one on the desk to make it look like they just gave you everything, and they got another phone. So I was checking pockets. After they leave the table where they put everything, where they put the phone on, I'd be checking pockets, and I'd take everything else out the pockets. Put that out too. I checked his vest. Dude had another phone. I said, put that on the desk too. Now you can go sit down. He sat down for 1 minute, got back up, said, I give up. If I don't have my phone, I can't pass the test. He pretty much admitted he couldn't do it without cheating. He had already failed, and now he's saying because I caught him, he was going to cheat. But then to make matters worse, we had another guy. What he was trying to do, he brought his drink in. So he kept drinking. You're allowed to have water, but he kept on drinking it so that he would have to pee. And then he just kept bothering us. You're not allowed to take a bathroom break during the exam. We tell you, you can take it before, you can take it after. During the exam, you don't take a bathroom break unless you're done. Once, if in other words, if you leave to take a bathroom break, you're already done. Because once you leave, you're done. This guy starts with, I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, well then you're done with the exam. No, let me come back. No, we're not doing that. We told y'all no. So don't start that mess. We finally kicked this dude out because he snuck a vape in. I was checking pockets. I didn't know he had a vape. So he pulled it out and inhaled the vape. Didn't even light it. He just inhaled it. But that was reason enough to kick him out. So we kicked him out. It wasn't really it wasn't really cheating in that case. But here's a kicker though. That guy there had actually tried to bribe his own professor to give him the answers to the test. Another test, not the exit exam. No joke, he had tried it. So that's a cheater that we threw out for reasons other than cheating. And then there's the guy that, the funny cheating story that I told on Buy Me a Coffee. You got to go and hear that one. Y'all need to go ahead and subscribe to find that one. And you need to subscribe. I already made it free to one-time donors for over a day and a half. Now you got to subscribe. You can do business class for $5 or you can do first class for $10 a month. But you got to subscribe to hear it. It's funny as all get out. Caught that dude too. Hilarious story. But the follow-up, the blowback from all of this stuff has been this. The reason that I caught these dudes, to answer Slipknot's question, is that, well, the reason that they failed is because I caught them and because a few others caught them, but I caught them. I did what they said to do. Just put it all on the online teaching platform that we have. The classes are not online, but there's an online platform so that students can stay in touch. They can turn everything in electronically and it's recorded to prove that they actually did it, right? You got a bunch of old white professors that don't like technology and they don't want to learn the technology. And they're like, I don't want to learn the system. I don't think we should do that. I want to do it the old-fashioned way. You know how some of them old white curmudgeons can be, the way they act. Well, that's not how we did it in my day. Well, goddamn, dude, welcome to the 2020s with your ancient ass. There's nothing immoral about this technology. You can complain about the lack of morals in today's time as if y'all were so moral. But this, what you complaining about? Ask one of us and we'll teach you, dumbass. So what happens, a lot of them just said, we don't want to do it. Even middle-aged white dudes. Here I come in, black male professor from North America. I know the drill. I got to learn this stuff. I wouldn't get the job without knowing it. So I learned the technology, the online platform. I did what I was supposed to do. So there was proof that these dudes didn't know enough English, right? So that's one thing. And then they showed up on test day and failed, but it was on that online platform. So in reality, they failed because once we took away the means that they could cheat, and they have to write in English correctly in the advanced level, and that's what it's for. And once they did that, they were used to using an online platform to turn these things in, but they figured out ways to to break the browser security so they could go to other windows and get answers and cheat. They found ways to do it. When it came to their writing, we said, for that, you're going to do it on paper. You give it to us. We'll scan it into the online platform for you. We'll do it that way. But you're not going to turn around and you're not going to turn around and use the online platform to cheat because you figured out ways to hack around it. So you're not doing that. Not for the writing portion, no. So once that happened, now we have their writing scanned, proving that they had not even learned enough to pass the previous level, but they were sitting in my level. My level's advanced. They was proving that they had not learned enough from the intermediate level. What the F were they doing in my level? In my classes. This proved that there'd been a systemic failure and it took my black behind to find it. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this to say that you guys, and it's true, English is difficult, Slipknot. It takes me to specialize in making it easy. I'm actually the only professor that specializes in actually making English easier to learn. Now, there will be others over time, that's true. I just got lucky enough to be the first. I'm not even saying that to brag. But what I'm saying is that if you look at me, whose blackness could be argued and debated, and this is what's going on, and now changes, permanent changes are being forced to be made in the department, and they have to recognize that I contributed to that. What happens if it's one of you and your blackness can't even be debated? And you came in and did the same thing. Think about the representation there. Not just the representation in the eyes of those who are not black. That's there, that's true. And it's nice if you get it, but that's not what we rely on, right? No, we don't do that. But think about the representation in the eyes of other nationalities that are black that have also been subjected to the same brainwashing, being told they're worth less than worthless. Because it's been across the board. It ain't just one nationality of black men that's been told this. But see, this I put this up on the screen here. This comment from a Laker to show y'all something. He saw the parallel between how they are and how sistren are, the ones that are sisters to each other. The hyena attitude. I'm saying that as one word. The hyena attitude. That we see in the Anglosphere diaspora, and to a certain extent even in the Francophone diaspora. What's going on, Phantom Clutch? Walaikum salam, Robert Campbell. He sees the parallels, and I've talked about them before. These are men that do love their families. Like we do, they do. They love their families. They do have a sense of responsibility to their families, like we do. Their sense of responsibility is more inherited and less detailed than ours. But they do love their families. Not knocking them. They spoil their sisters and their daughters, and they raise their sons. The women will spoil their sons and their brothers, and they will raise their daughters. That's one of the things that has helped keep the family structure a bit more stable here. You don't have a bunch of kids running around from fornication. That is one thing I can say you don't have here. Not much. You got a few. I mean, you actually have kids who you don't really know where they came from because they were sometimes left at a masjid and they're adopted later on. They are presumed to be orphans. They're given the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're orphans. But since their origins are unknown, they tend to marry each other when they get older. So the family dynamics here do tend to be a bit more stable. That is the case. I mean, I wouldn't say a bit, a hell of a lot more stable in terms of knowledge and paternity and the certainty of it. You wouldn't necessarily want to give up your family to be a member of one of their families, though it's not quite like that. But when it comes down to this lack of accountability, you will notice that these guys here do not develop that when it comes to academics. They don't have that. That's where I don't see it. They don't have it when it comes down to the parts of the culture they need to change. Oh, well, that's not our fault. Oh, man, come off of it. It's not your fault they got started. It's your fault you carried it on. Well, what did you expect me to do? I expect you to be a man and stand up to them. If it's something that's wrong in the culture, something that's un-Islamic, but it's Arab culture, and stand up to the Arabs and say, you're going to do what God said to do. And they don't have that sense of accountability when it comes to those things. They don't have a sense of accountability when enough other people are doing something. That's what I should say. So when it comes down to the health, the academics, things like that, things where the majority is not actually following the rules that are revealed, and instead they're just following the culture, then yeah, they're going to turn around and not have a sense of accountability. My boss actually made mention of this. The boss that my students wanted to turn around and blame me for them failing refused to do it. But one of the things he said to me was, Jet Black, I'm telling you, in all of my years heading this department, there's not been one student that came to me and ever said, you know what, I did this to myself. When they ask me for help, or they ask me for mercy, or they ask me to just give them something they didn't earn, they never say, I did this to myself. They don't even say, I did it to myself as an accident. I wasn't trying to. It was an honest mistake. They don't even say it was an honest mistake. They just say, you have to help me. Even though they screwed up, you got to help me. And there is this notion between the men here, between these men here, there's this notion that if you are a lazy student, but you over there are a good and strong student, then you, the strong student over there, oh, this lazy student over here, the benefits that you gain from being a strong student. You study, you learn. This guy over here hangs out the night before an exam, chilling with his friends, joking about how he's going to cheat on the exam. The next day, he wants you to feel like you owe it to him to give him some answers. If I'm standing on the other side of the room dealing with another student who's only asking dumb questions just to be a distraction to others because they cooperate when it comes to cheating. Because they feel that the good students owe it to the bad students to help them out so they don't have to study. No joke. In my advanced classes, I will have some students on occasion. It hasn't happened here where I am now, but everywhere else I would be, when I taught the advanced classes, I would have students that didn't know a goddamn sentence, but they're in the advanced level. And I would jump on their ass like, what are you doing in my class and you don't know anything from the previous classes, the previous lessons? And the good students would stand up and say, go easy on him, Dr. Black. Chill out. He doesn't speak English. He needs help. He needs help. Little nigga ain't supposed to be in my class if he doesn't understand the basics. If he needs you right now to translate what I said for him, not just some words, but the whole sentences, the nigga don't belong 2 levels beneath us. And you study to get here and you understand everything I'm saying, but you want me to treat y'all equally because of what? You're not equal. That's what you're seeing right here in this mating market that you're dealing with in the West. Randy Rosario sitting up and saying, well, you know, we made dumbass decisions, we made stupid choices, but we were victims. That's why I put her on the thumbnail. But you need to get over it because we're not going to be any different. We're not going to grow up until we have some other man's kids and some STDs and baggage for you to take care of and raise and suffer from. You pay the price. Since we tricked off on these dudes we just wanted to smash. You owe it to us in the name of the community and being a loyal black man. These are parallels. You see that? So if you make an approach, and I'm going to, unless anybody asks to come up, I'm going to end it by saying this. Imagine your daughter or your cousin approaching a guy like my lower performing students, my undeserving students. Not just struggling and they probably need 2 semesters to get the information. Not even just failing because they really didn't get it, but they did try. They just need longer to understand it. That happens too. And there's no shame on those guys. We don't hate them. They got to pay it. I got to record that they got a failing grade, but those aren't the ones that are really problematic. But imagine your lady relatives approaching a guy like my cheating, no good shitbag students. Imagine that. You would look at that relative of yours, your daughter, your sister, your cousin, whatever. You look at that relative of yours and you would sit up and say, after you met this guy and knew how he was, you'd sit up and say, you just approached him because he's exotic or he's got that straight hair or something. You know, to sort of dilute the blackness of our bloodline. That's the only reason you approached him. He has no academic or intellectual rigor about him, but he has the same mental faculties everybody else is born with. But as soon as he has to study, he starts looking for phones and computers and other ways to cheat. That's what you would say. If you're going for this guy, you were only going for this guy to dilute the blackness in the bloodline. You would say that. You would say to your sister or the other lady relatives in your family, if you were going to approach a man to ask for his number, I probably don't need to know about it, but it's your right. But it is not wise to approach somebody this lackadaisical, mentally speaking. He earns nothing on his own, honestly. And he has the nerve to preach about what he believes in. But he can't take a test without cheating. Won't study anything no matter how long in advance you tell him that the test is going to be and what skills he needs. He ain't going to do it. He ain't going to study. So for you to approach him is the worst you could have done. That's what you would say. Right? Gentlemen, when you approach one of these hyenas, it is the same thing. The way I describe these men to you, you're like, oh, wait, that's not really manly the way they act. Guess what? The way I describe these dudes to you and how much they failed according to their own standards, that's what these hyenas have been doing for generations. Now, we don't look for these hyenas to be manly, of course, but we do look for them to be adults, and they're not adults. What Randy Rosario said is not only just unfair and stupid, it is childish and retarded. It's not something an adult would say, man or woman. And all of the sisters out there are not hyenas. They're not all Randy Rosarios, not all of them, but most of them are. Generally speaking, if they're not that way, they're not willing to speak against it until they have sons that they actually love enough to not want some woman to play them. A lot of them have sons and they think it's their job to be played just like their dads got played. If that man is their dad. No, let me rephrase that. There are a lot of them have sons and think it's the son's job to be played just like their stepdads are being played. That's a better way to describe it. When you approach these hyenas, you are doing the same mother cuss word thing that you don't want your lady relatives, especially your accomplished lady relatives. Imagine that, educated, accomplished, and still feminine, fit, and friendly. That lady relative of yours, you don't want her approaching a guy like these shitbags that cheated in my class and then failed and then went and lied to the president about me. Now, the president didn't know what to believe, but the president just asked my direct bosses in the department, hey, is that true about Jet Black? And my bosses, both of them in the department, said, no, that ain't true. We passed on the hallway and heard him doing his job. We walk down the hallways and we hear them. Sometimes they don't see us. He didn't see us. We heard him doing his job. He was explaining all the time. So no, what they said about him not teaching English is a damn lie. And we have it on the online platform to prove he was doing his job. They're lying. You look at these guys like this that do all of this left-right stuff, right? Like anything to just not do their job. You look at those guys. You don't want, you start and think about the female relative of yours that is beautiful and accomplished and intelligent and still fit, feminine, and friendly, a hell of a good catch for any man. And imagine her approaching and pursuing one of these little nut jobs in my last class. That's you when you approach these sisters in the West. The gap is exactly the same. That's why I wanted you to understand you better not approach. I'm glad to hear that we're not approaching. I'm glad to hear that these women are having these videos where they're not being approached. White, black, everything else. I'm glad to see it. But gentlemen, you better not. The fact that you're a black man and there are fetishes about you that women don't have about other men means you really shouldn't be making approaches. You should be fair, you should be just, you should be polite, but they should be coming to you and then you negotiate, okay, look, here's what's up. I'm going to do this for you, what you going to do for me? Because these other groups of women, at the very least, they're probably going to say, well, this is what I'll do. And that's if you're going to let them come and approach you in the West. I still don't recommend it, but if you're going to, that's the way to do it. Sisters ain't going to do it. They're not going to come and approach you because they told themselves and told you for so long that you're not worth it. They're going to wait until they ain't got no more eggs. Then they're going to come after you. Now, if you like them mature, or, chronologically mature, I know because I'm one of those guys, so I know we exist, which is rare. Usually we're related to each other, which makes me think it's genetic. But if you're one of those MILFophiles, like I am, okay, you can take a MILF. You Muslim, she can come and talk to you about marriage. You're not, well, y'all got your own rules. But the point is, you got to understand your value and negotiate with that. And say to them, look, what are you looking for? If I got that, I'll give it to you so long as this is an even exchange. What's the exchange part of it? What you gonna do? That's how you got to handle that because, gentlemen, you must keep this in mind. The reason you should not be making approaches is because you're not the one that's worthless. You're not worth less, let alone worthless. You're the one who has been forced to be worth so much. Nobody would let you be worthless and get anything out of life. So when somebody like Randy Rosario sits up and tells you to get over it, you say, no. You get over it when you find out that you're not the only wife. You get over it. You get over it when you find out that I'm digging you out and I'm digging out another woman. Now, I'll be responsible about the diseases and stuff, but when you find this out, you get over it and know you can't sleep with somebody else and stay with me. Polygyny, not polyandry. That is the only getting over that needs to be done. No, I get over on you if you think it's okay to get over on me. One more thing, because I said I was going to end this. So I'm ending it with this. And I appreciate you all rocking with me for this hour. I mean that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I'm going to tell y'all this about some people saying Randy Rosario is a tether or she's non-FBA. Look, I don't know where Randy Rosario's parents are from. I'm not sure. I've heard that she's married and her only child is from her husband. I've heard that she's married but her child is from somebody else. Whatever the case is, she promoted what she promoted, and we got her on that right there. That's enough to get a conviction if we're going to have convictions and felonies for this kinds of thing. So she done already convicted herself. Take what she said as an unknowing confession, all right? When a hyena talks like that, it doesn't matter their nationality. That's not even to be discussed. That is because the hyenas don't have a nationality. I've stated this before. The hyenas want every nationality to be like them, and they're spreading their message as best they possibly can. Now, they got simps in every culture that are also going to spread that. You got simps here, and they're called simps, by the way. Arabs call these men simps. They don't know how to pluralize it sometimes, so they'll say simp as a plural and a singular, but they call them that. And they call loose women, they call loose women whore as a singular, but they have a plural, which is hawar. It's funny to hear them take an English word and make an Arabic plural out of it. It's funny, but yeah, they do that. And they know they're not talking about the Hur al-Ain of paradise. They know that that's not what they're talking about, even though they might be spelled the same. I don't know if they spell it the same actually or not, but in any case, the point is that they know they're talking about these loose broads. And the men that are male feminists, they call them a simp. And they will tell you those men are enemies. And they do what they do so that the women will like them. And when I tell them, did you know that women that are feminists actually hate men that are feminists? They hate the men that agree with them the most. Did you know that? And they fuck them the least, even if they marry them. Did y'all? I told some dudes that. And they said, damn, it's that bad. I was like, yeah, bro. Because the problem's older in my country than it is over here. So it's progressed more so I can tell you what's going to happen. It's not that I can see the future. It's that they've shown us in the U.S. and North America in general and other Western countries what the future of this is. And it's new. It's new here. I've seen how the same tree grows there. Somebody planted it over here so I can tell you. It's not that I'm a genius. I'm certainly not a prophet. I don't see the future. Except what they show us, but they're showing us that. And that's what I wanted you all to see. They are not playing about spreading this to other places, though. We don't know how many women are like this over here in this country. We're not sure because they still hide it. And these men will tell you, there are men over here that will tell you, if I find out my sister's a feminist, I won't have a sister. Now that probably means that they would disown her. But they would say something in that way so that you would not know if they mean disown her or kill her. They do that so that the ones who would kill their sister for that would be covered up. They would be harder to find. I don't advocate executing feminists. I know abandonment is far worse for them. But I don't determine what these men are going to say. So I want you guys to understand that it doesn't matter the nationality of the hyena. It doesn't matter the race of the hyena to a certain extent. The race might determine which culture they follow and how they apply that to their hyenaism. But I do want you to understand that these things don't particularly matter because, see, when it comes down, the reason we even delineate between the different nationalities of black folk is really just to be specific about the cultures. If you're not gang banging and trying to be divisive, then you're just trying to be descriptive and distinct, and that's what the reason would be. Okay, that's not wrong, but when it comes down to the culture of the hyena, it's the same. They hate you, and they want you to pay for them to screw the same few guys they all want to screw. They want you to pay them to do it. They not only want to cheat on you, they want to cheat on you at your expense. They want to bring that guy's baby to you to raise. It's the same thing for hyenas. Period, across the board. It doesn't matter if they're Jamaican. It doesn't matter if they're African American. It doesn't matter if they're Angolan. It doesn't matter if they're Chinese and they're not even black. The only thing that makes a difference if they're black or not is that a black hyena, no matter her nationality, is going to be loud and proud with it. Ain't no stealth, nothing. Nothing to hide it. That's actually one thing that makes me look at hyenas of our own race as being a little bit less dangerous than the hyenas of other races. They're out with it right off the bat. We know what's happening. Social media just made it plain for everybody to see. Now see, 30 years ago, I had these pessimistic thoughts, but I was fighting these pessimistic thoughts about how it is with women and men, especially black women and men. I was fighting them. I was like, nah, that's pessimism talking. That ain't real. Now here we are, 30 plus years later, not just 30, but 30 plus years later. Over 35 years after I had these pessimistic thoughts initially, and what I'm coming to understand is that the more pessimistic I was as a teen, the more accurate I was. That's why I talk about this the way that I talk about it. You know how you have those daydreams for like 5 seconds and then you come back to whatever you're supposed to be doing, like your schoolwork when you're that age. Some of the 5-second thoughts I had that were pessimistic as hell are now coming true. Or they've been true for years, even decades, and social media is proving them true. It's one or it's the other. Ain't no neither one. It is hatred. It is misandry. That's why you hear me use that word. I thought back in middle school, if we're supposed to be attracted to these chicks, but they're always talking about how bad men are, doesn't that mean that they hate us? And they want us to love them while they hate us? And now what we're seeing is they want us to love them while they hate us. Well, the difference between the white hyena and the black hyena, no matter her nationality, is that the white hyena may or may not be that open, outright, fist in the air, pink-haired feminist. She may or may not be. That sister lets you know you are worth less than worthless to her. Your job is to love her. Her job is to hate you. Your job is to be faithful to her. Her job is to cheat on you. Your job is to pay her. Her job is to give your money to the guy she wants to smash, then bring his baby home to you. And they see that. I'm telling you, sisters make you know that that's their job. That's why when I say sisters, they're only sisters to each other, and that's what I'm referring to. Don't believe me? Take women like Gail at Night, who don't believe in this sort of thing, don't believe in this kind of behavior. Take someone like that. Do you know that even some women that are holding women accountable will fight with Gail? I'm not going to say more than this. I'm going to let her determine how much she will explain later on. It's up to her. But what I will tell you is that there are women that we know for holding women accountable, holding other women, holding hyenas accountable for the effery. We know that, and they will turn around and they will try to fight someone like Gail because somebody already started trying to fight someone like Gail at Night. For something as simple as being asleep during a phone call. If she chooses to tell you more, she can. If she doesn't have to. She has a good reason to choose either one. It's up to her. But the way, and I've seen proof. I mean, I've seen strong evidence, I should say. A slightly higher photo resolution would have made it proof. There are women out there making a career of telling us what we want to hear. And when their private lives are exposed, you start to wonder if they even like any men at all that would love them back. Bilal Gadzekpo, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum, Surah 16. Salute, Revelator. So, if you take women like Gail at Night who don't fight you, now some of you might say, oh, you know, she a single mom. But she's not telling any of you to take responsibility for something else, for something that somebody else did. She doesn't sit up and say that you got to get over it, like what Randy Rosario was saying. She understands your right to look for what is a fair deal for yourself, just like like ladies have the right to look for what is a fair deal for themselves. You take the way that others will treat women like Gail at night as one example. She ain't the only one, and she'll tell you she's not the only one like that. But you look at how the rest of the hyenas will treat the women that are not hostile to us. Just look at that. And you can see why it is that you don't need to be out there making approaches. You see, the ones that are not hostile are in danger sometimes if they go online, especially if they're young when they do it. That is the case. When they go online, it's somewhat of a risk. But when they go out in public and they're like that, it's even more of a danger to them. That's the truth of the matter. Now it's even more dangerous for them. You take someone like Ebony K. Williams, but without the money, making the same decisions, but without the expensive sperm bank. All right? And then you take someone that's not hostile to us, doesn't talk down on us, not a hyena, and then openly says, take someone like Dee Dee Reeves. Dee Dee Reeves, I just put up in my community tab how fantastic Mr. Fantastic referred to her, and she said, "It ain't your fault, black man." She said this. Now you got a lady saying this, and a black man repeating her. It's not just Jet Black telling you it ain't your fault, black man, anymore. It's not just me saying it. She's sitting up and saying, no, it ain't your fault. Or it's not your fault, which is the 4 or 5 sentence, depending on whether or not you use contractions, that really sums up what the whole black manosphere is about. She says this. She's married. She has to be careful how she runs her errands. As she gets older, that danger will wear off. But there are women that will try to hurt her because there is a man that lives with her and is benefiting from being a black man that is benefiting from being her husband and not having to deal with the hostility and the hatred. So some would want to beat the snot out of a woman like her. Somebody, if Gail at night goes out in public and says this sort of thing on the street, they will come after her. And that forces the ladies that are deserving to have to sit inside. And even then, let's be honest, they don't go after the men they want either, and they never did. And therefore, what that means to you, gentlemen, what that means to you, black man, is that you shouldn't be making approaches. Because for one, to approach a woman like this, you got to go to her house. How the hell you going to know where she lives? Ain't your job to know that. So you can't find her. She's probably married. Ain't your job to be stealing other men's wives. Not your fault, not hers. If she's married, fine. But that's it. She's not available. If she's not, she's still at home. What's she supposed to do? Go to her door? How are you supposed to even know who she is and where she lives? You can't find them, so you have to understand that for you, making approaches is just plain, flat out selling yourself short. You're the one that women want to approach. The difference between non-black women, well, let's say the difference between, let's say the difference between black Western women, black non-Western women, and non-Western women at all is that the black Western woman doesn't want to approach you until she ain't got nothing to offer you in exchange. How do I know? Well, the way I know that is because I'm a milfophile. And since I'm a milfophile, milfs want to play that game with me. Because their age doesn't disqualify them from me. I'm like, oh, God, okay. So since I actually don't mind your age, now you want to turn around and act like the way you did when you were young with these other guys that didn't want to, you know what, get out my face. I've talked about that before. So even then, you still got to be kind of tough with them. Then you've got the Western non-black women. They want to approach you, but they want to approach you before they lose all of that value. They still want to approach you when they're kind of young, if that's especially if that's what you're interested in. Now, they just may not want to be seen as your wife in public, or they may not want people from their community to know. Alan Roger Curry talked about that, but they do want to approach you. And at the very least, when they approach you, they don't approach you just to financially take care of them and their kids by somebody else. When they do approach you, though it's sexual, and that still can be an insult when all you're good for is a ding-a-ling, it's not as much of an insult when some lady says to you, "Oh, you're good for everything but the ding-a-ling," because you might actually enjoy using that. So their way is a bit less insulting, and then you got traditional women from other places that want to approach you when everything is when they're fine, when they get first choice, they want to approach you. They just may not know how to approach a man, and they still might send a friend of theirs to find out about you. If they don't approach you, for the most part, it's because they don't really know how. And if they're not into you, they still won't bother you, and they won't try to stop another woman from being into you and being interested. And that's the difference. If you're going to make an approach, you might make an approach to a woman that would have approached you if she knew how or if it was okay. Someone that would actually appreciate the fact that you approached her. And if you're not her type, she won't blame you for not knowing. Just don't harass her afterwards and you're good. So if you're going to make an approach, that's where you would do it. If you're stuck in the West, I'll tell you don't make approaches. But the worst one you can make an approach to is the Western sister. They're following behind everybody else. It's beyond just Me Too scandals. It's what the Me Too scandals symbolize. Nobody believed Tiana Burke when she started that stuff off. Some people called her KRS2. I don't know if she really was bothered or not. I wasn't there. What I do know is that a lot of sisters, see, if a guy gets up and says that he was harassed by some women at his job, and he was told that if he didn't pipe her down on her desk, he wasn't going to get the promotion. And the woman's in shape and nice to look at, and he looks like he's been fixing computers most of his life. Even if he's tall and in shape, but he wears glasses and looks like he's been fixing computers most of his life, women would sit up and say, that is not true. You were not sexually harassed at the job. Stop lying. The same women that are now saying believe all women would say they would say they can look at this man and tell as a woman that he's never been sexually harassed. At least not by a woman. That's what they would say. The way that they handled Tiana Burke's accusations, the way that they handled that is opposite to the way that they would have handled a man that looked like her saying that he was sexually harassed by a woman that was halfway decent looking. We knew the hypocrisy theoretically from that point on. We already knew what it was. Shouts out to Adine for coming through on the Cash App. Thank you from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. I mean that. And shouts out to Gail and Knight for coming through on the Cash App. I appreciate that from the bottom of my black heart and from the depths of my black mind. And 3 black hearts with it. I mean that. I really do appreciate that. What I would do is these proceeds, I would use them wisely, having to do with the YouTube channel, or the educational supply business I started in Asia. Because every time I pay there to run it, I let the folks know that this is African Americans and Africans, and sometimes some Caribbean diasporans that help them out. So when they get paid for doing their jobs, I tell them that it's y'all. So you already got positive representation in Asia, specifically Southeast Asia. That's one reason I don't even tell y'all what country it's in, because I want you to understand that Southeast Asia is already is good so far, except for Pattaya. Passport Pookies, from what I've heard, have been ruining Pattaya in the last few months. But I talked about how to deal with that on my Buy Me a Coffee, uh, Jet Black Air Lounge, and that's for both classes as well. So what I was getting at is that if you are going to make these approaches, the worst one to make an approach to is going to be the Western system. If she's out and about and she's not a hyena, she's probably out with her husband. Her husband's probably not too far away. Not your fault, not hers. She and he did the right thing. They did what they were supposed to do when they found each other. You may just not know she's married if you can't see her left hand, or she comes from a culture where they don't wear wedding rings. But why do that? If she's out and about and she ain't married, then she's going to be afraid. Even if she's not a hyena, she's still going to be scared. So don't try it. It's just not worth it. It's beyond now just Me Too. It's going back to some things that happened long before Me Too, even back when our grandparents were young and meeting each other. If you are the one that has to pay everything, then why the hell you got to pay all the bills, you got all the responsibility, and then they tell you you don't have any authority these days? Why the hell should you make the approach? You're chasing somebody down. You're supposed to make the pursuit of someone who's never going to initiate anything you might like. She's not going to offer to take you out for dinner. She ain't going to initiate sex, even when you're married. She's not going to ask you to marry her. She's not going to ask you out on a date. And then when it comes to things you don't want, then she's going to bring those up and initiate that for you. When she wants to get married, she doesn't ask you to marry her. She asks you why you didn't ask her. What the F, man? Okay, well, let's say that that's just where it starts, but that's not where it ends. Okay, fine. But what about the fact that it's going to always be that way? Whatever she thinks you don't want, she initiates. She won't initiate sex, but she tell you, I want kids. The fuck out of here. If she initiates it, it's so that she can conceive. Then she'll initiate a breakup, be it just a breakup or a divorce. She'll initiate that. She'll file for that. So you're supposed to pursue her so that nothing you want is ever initiated. You try to impress her so that she'll say yes when you ask her to marry you, even though with the laws being what they are in most states, marriage is a bad deal for men and a good deal for women. Maybe it's a neutral deal for men if alimony is not a big thing. And she doesn't appreciate you asking her to marry you if you pull out a prenup. Oh, that doesn't count. So you're supposed to pursue her, to pay her bills, initiate things she wants as though she doesn't want them. Never have anything you want initiated. Have everything you don't want initiated. And then lose most of what it is you work for, because in order to convince her to marry your ass, you have to make enough to where she gets a reward when she leaves your ass. That's what you're making pursuits for. That's what you're making approaches for. You are asking for abuse because people are not coming out and telling you that it is designed to be abuse. It doesn't just turn out to be that way. It's not a gamble. That's the design. And on top of that, a high chance of being cheated on. Most of you could go most of your lives. Ain't no beautiful women trying to cheat with you. Some of you only have been experienced women coming at you when they were married trying to cheat with you on their husband. Some of you only have that. Others of you have never had even that kind of approach being made to you. then you if you convince a woman to marry you, she gonna cheat on you. And even some who are going to listen to the replay are going to hear me say this and say, well, he telling you that there's something wrong with you. Jet Black is saying there's something wrong instead of sitting up and saying that there's something wrong with them. Assalamu alaikum, Robert Campbell. This is important right here. Even if you're a Muslim, I'm telling you, don't make the approach. Don't do it. Foot the work, not in the U.S., not in Canada. Hell, I'd say not in Jamaica. In the Caribbean islands. Don't do it. Make an approach for what? Because if her dad's in her life, her dad's probably going to be a simp. You better not offer my baby no prenup. But, well, I mean, damn, dude. What kind of father-in-law are you? What's in it for me? Well, real men don't ask what's in it for them, they just do. Okay, now I see why she married you. Now I get it. That happens. Now, how's that fair to you? If it was fair to you, they wouldn't even agree to the marriage in the West. That's how their mindsets are. It can't be fair to you. And you're supposed to go and make an approach to them. Even if you're married, if you're Muslim, there is a right way to do that. And I'm going to tell you, in a general context, if the man is going to make the initial approach and open up the discussion, it will be, listen, do you know who a dad is? First, do you know if she's married? Do you know who a dad is? You ask her, listen, I'd like to know if it's okay for me to meet your dad. Can I get his number? Or uncle or something like that. That's how you would do that. And she's like, don't worry about it. You're not going to meet him. Thanks for asking. Then that's the end of it. Nothing personal. And then she says, all right, this is my dad's number. Then you meet the dad and you had a discussion with her and the dad, or her brother and the dad, or some male relative. With her and her male relative. Because all three got to agree. That's how you would do that normally if you live in the West. Because of the past of even a lot of the Muslim women, with the past that they have, don't make an approach. She needs to be chasing your butt down and paying you a dowry. And the ones that don't have that kind of past, and they do exist, but the ones that don't have that kind of past feel more entitled to never have a day of hardship once they marry you. So why would you risk that? Their dads feel the same way. Like she should never have any hardship in life once she gets married. I'm saying this as a Muslim father of two daughters that I love. And I'm pretty sure that they're not developing or creating a bad and ghost-filled past for themselves. I'm pretty sure they're not. But if they start feeling like they're entitled to not suffer ever again in life and live happily ever after because they agreed to marry someone, and I know that's how they feel, I'll tell the guy, not her, I'll tell the guy, I don't approve of her for you. What's wrong with me? You didn't hear what I just said. You think I said it backwards. I said I don't approve of her for you, sir. She's a spoiled one, not you. If I love her because she's my daughter, then the best thing for me to do for her is to not give her a chance to oppress someone that doesn't deserve it. Same way that even a Muslim woman with a son that ain't got nothing would tell other women, you don't want my son, he ain't got nothing. Oh yeah, that happens. Especially amongst black Muslims. When I say black, I don't mean nationality again. I'm talking the race. A Sudanese Muslim woman will say the same thing to her son. If he ain't got nothing, he wants to get married. What? Get married? How you gonna do that? You ain't got nothing. A black Saudi woman with a son that wants to get married before he has anything will say, I love you, but see, now you're talking about somebody, you're talking about responsibility to somebody else. How you gonna do it and you ain't got a good job yet? Yeah, it's like that. This is something that generally works across the board. I done told you, being a black Muslim is great. We got some of the most unity within the black race. I've said that before because it's true. I didn't say it because I'm Muslim. I'm Muslim because I saw that was true. But what I can also tell you is that that's one of the downsides. So when it comes down to, even if you are a Muslim And we're talking about the context of marriage. In the West, you shouldn't be making the approach. Save that for when you get outside the West and get into a more traditional area. Then you can make an approach to the women for whom the system is already like that and they know they better appreciate your butt. And if you go to a place where they're black and they're Muslim and they still don't appreciate the men, then you bounce on their asses too. If you go to Sudan and find out that the families there and the women are just as harsh on you financially speaking, don't marry them. I don't know what they're like really as wives. I've heard, I don't really know, but you know what? You find out they're harsh, don't marry them. I don't care where it is. In reality, because of the things that men have to put up with on a global scale, I'm tempted to tell all men globally, what's the reason you should have to make the approach? Is she going to pay any bills for you? If she's going to do something to help you, fine. But what is it about, what makes her worth you making the approach before you make the approach, even if you are a traditional Muslim man living in a traditional Muslim environment? I'm tempted to start telling those men that. Even them, and it's not because of hatred for women. It's not misogyny. It's just, you know what? If it's all this responsibility, then why the hell should I go running after someone for the chance to take their responsibilities on my shoulder? And I might start doing that, especially if this hyena business starts to spread abroad. You know what? Never mind. It already has started to spread abroad. So I'm going to go ahead and start telling Muslim men the same thing. Hey, look, I'm not blaming you for liking women. I'm just saying this. Why should you all have to make the approach if you got to take all the responsibility? If I'm the one that owes the electric company a particular bill and a debt, are you going to chase me down and try to convince me to let you pay that? For what? I'm going to tell the men, listen, you ask every woman, if you're going to ask and you're going to approach any woman at all, you ask only once. You ask the dad only once. And if they say you don't make enough or something like that, when you do make enough later, you invite the dad to dinner just to catch up with him, see how he's doing. But you do not ask him about marrying his daughter. When he sees you got enough and he's like, hey, salute Solomeo, como está? When it gets down to that, you do not ask about marrying his daughter. And if he says, hey, look, my daughter's still single. You want me to talk to her and see if she'll marry you? Just say, oh, no, that's too late. I make too much money for her now. Too much money? You mean not enough? You got more than enough. No, I mean I make too much. If that's what it comes down to, if it's something else. And that's what it comes to. That's the point. It's just like that guy that went and got his legs stretched out. Now, he's 5 years later, that man is still recovering. The one that got his legs stretched out. Dr. BOA made a reference to that man before. Recently, he did. But if that man got turned down by some lady before because of his height, or she said it was because of his height, and it might have been, in her mind. If that man sees that woman later and she starts trying to get at him, that man needs to be like, I'm the wrong height for you. No, you're not. Look how tall you are. Yeah, I'm the wrong height for you. You don't deserve 6 feet. You deserve a man that's like 5'5" or something. Let me go get him for you. And it's not to crap on her for having a preference. Well, in the West, yeah, absolutely it is, because their preferences are not worth respect. That's true in the West. So yeah, what I said stands in the West, absolutely. But you get the idea. Salute cynical optimists. I'm gonna say this, Darius, Morocco. Let's see if you've been there. Well, you and I might have discussed already Morocco. I think. I've only been through Ethiopia's airport one time, the capital city's airport, just once. But I can say this. I will say this about Ethiopia because I think one of the brothers that experienced that is in this chat. I won't say his name. He can step out if he wants to, but I think he experienced it. It may have been another brother that's in the same city as him. But what I'm going to say is this. In Ethiopia, uh, someone explained to me that although all the women are not feminist, the ones that are will try to get at you. So if you're in Ethiopia, even if you're just going to visit and you're not checking for chicks, and as a Muslim, we only check for wives anyway. But even if you're like, let's say, even if you're not even checking for a wife, if there is a feminist, they may be the ones that come at you and try to get at you. So it wouldn't be that they're all like that. It's just that in the beginning, it's sort of like when you go to a new job. You know how that is. In the beginning, at a new job, the sisters that try to get at you are usually the smoke screen. They ain't got much going for themselves. They need somebody to help them take care of somebody else's kids. They got issues, baggage, stuff like that. Probably done, shagged all the no good ninjas at the job and shunned the good ones. It's similar to that. They come at you first, and in Ethiopia, it's not that they're all that way, but the ones who are, they'll be the first ones to try to say something to you. That's what someone told me. I hope it's not true. But let us know what it's like. Get pictures, please, Ethiopia. I understand the weather's great in the center part of the country. So let us know what it is and what month you're going and all that. Nobody requested to go on the panel, and no ladies came in to challenge the notion. And so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Abdullah bin Bobby, I'm not sure. People said they could hear clearly before. So I don't know if it's just you. I'm really not sure, but I'm going to listen to the playback later on. And if it is like that, I'm going to have to find a better headphone, a better earphone. See what I can get one that's better for streaming. They're not too expensive here, at least not too expensive for a professor. So I'll hear the playback and then I'll know which one it is. And if it does turn out to be too low, the volume was too low this time, y'all. Please forgive me, and I'll get better headsets the next time to try to make it better. Thank you so much, Global Free Agent. And Solomon Maleka, I appreciate the compliment, and I hope it really helped out. And I hope this helps out a lot of other people, too. I want to thank all of you all, not only those of you that came through on the Cash App, but I also want to thank those of you that subscribe to the Jet Black Air Lounge. And I want to thank you all for getting me up to 4,860 subscribers. I mean that also from the bottom of my black heart. I'm looking forward to the day that we get up to 5,000. And I think that what Brother Campbell here said is a perfect note to end this one. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect note to end it. They ain't going to check for sisters because they know what's going on. And I'm going to add to that, Brother Campbell, by saying a lot of these sisters really wouldn't be interested in anybody if they didn't have these medical problems. And I'm a witness. I'm a witness. Thank you all for flying with Jet Black Air. Well, the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jet black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.